Hey, this is Jeff Challen. So I want to show you a little bit about how, maybe I'll just say, I'm going to make some suggestions about how to use these materials. So what we're providing is a series of lessons. These lessons start off from nothing. These are designed for people who have never programmed before and have no exposure to computer science. So we start off with the basics of how to work with data, how to make simple decisions, how to repeat parts of your program, and things like that. Over the course of around 60 lessons, we get you to the point where you can actually use some more complex data structures and even think about things like graph algorithms. So this is essentially the amount of material that we teach to beginning computer scientists here at the University of Illinois. The materials don't include a larger project currently that we do in the actual class at the University of Illinois, but this is a lot of the conceptual material that we cover. Students here do an Android programming project in the second half of the semester, but that's not included on the site yet. Maybe we'll get there someday. So each lesson, when we use these during the semester, each lesson represents a day's worth of content. My suggestion is, if you can work at that pace, great. If you need to work a little bit more slowly, that's also fine. Don't work too much more quickly. We do use these in the summer where students do 2 lessons a day, but they're actually expected to put a fair amount of time into the course in order to be able to achieve that learning rate. My suggestion is either go 1 lesson per day or slower. If you try to do a lot, what happens is, your brain isn't absorbing the information as much. Maybe you're still making progress and you think that things are okay, but it's like you're trying to learn too quickly and you're not going to get the benefits. So if you did 1 of these lessons per day, you could finish this course in 12 weeks if you only worked Monday through Friday. Worked on the weekend, it goes a little faster. But I would not do more than about 1 per day. If you can't do 1 per day, you could do 2 one day and then take a day off and then come back, that's okay. But the faster you try to do them, the more material you try to cover in a particular window of time, the more difficult it's going to be to really learn the information in a way that's permanent and sticks around. So my suggestion is don't do too much of that. You can learn either Java or Kotlin, and if you'd like to learn both, hit this toggle button and you can see both lessons. I've chosen Java as my primary language here for this demo account. You can learn Kotlin. The conceptual material covered by the lessons is the same. So let's take a look at a lesson. I'm just going to turn this off and go ahead and look at the variables and types lesson. So lessons on this site consist of a number of different components. So we have text, and these all work together. None of them are designed to stand alone. So don't just read the lessons because you miss a lot of the point, right? You miss a lot of the content. Don't just watch the walkthroughs. You actually need to read the text as well. We're trying to engage kind of different parts of your brain to give you the best chance you have of learning the material. So what I have here is something that's called this is called a playground. And this is just a little piece of code that I can play with and modify. So here I'm going to change the value of a variable. By hitting Control-Enter or this play button over here, I can run the code safely on our backend servers and see what happens. And we do this a lot. There's a lot of places in the text where we'll say, hey, I wonder what happens if we try this crazy thing. And then we'll just have a playground right there with the code loaded in, with that crazy thing written out in code, and then we can see what happens. So this is really an inductive approach in terms of how we were teaching. We don't tell you what happens, we show you. We show you the code, we let you run it and experiment and see what happens when we try different things, right? So we use a lot of these throughout the material. There is also this component called an interactive walkthrough. We talked a little bit about this in one of the other videos, but this is super important. So this looks a little bit like a walkthrough, except down here you've got all these different avatars. And so what's cool about this is showing us how we store a single variable, or how we use a single variable to store data in Java. If I click on this is my avatar, the walkthrough starts. And what's going to happen is, and I've got the volume down a little bit right now on my computer, but I'm talking, but then as I go along, I'm also manipulating the code, right? And so in this case, I start off with a variable that stores a value of 0. I show you the different parts by using highlighting. And then I print it, and then I change the value towards the end. Here I fast forward a little bit. You can jump around. This acts a little bit like a video. But here's what's cool about it. It's not a video. It's a walkthrough. And so I can stop and I can do things like this. I'll change the value of I from 88 to 68 and print it. I see 68 is printed. Now when I hit play, reverts back to the value that I was using when I recorded the walkthrough. You also see that there are explanations here from multiple different instructors. So there's one from me, there's one from another professor here called Colleen Lewis, who did a full set of explanations for the Java materials. So, if something doesn't make sense to you the first time, when you come to one of these walkthroughs, let's say you watch my explanation and you're so like, there's something about it that doesn't make sense to me, and you want a different take on the same information, try one of the other explanations. This is a real strength of these materials, is we have lots of different voices. So maybe Colleen's explanation doesn't quite make sense to you, and you can move on, and you can try Blair's, right? And you just keep going, right? So there's a lot of different chances to learn from people who have contributed to these materials. Okay, at the end, so throughout the lessons are these practice problems. So here's an example of a practice problem. We're at the very beginning, so we're just learning how to declare variables in Java. It's a little bit of explanation here. This is what's explaining to me, here's what I want you to do, and then I've got some code here. Now, with the practice problems, you can try them as many times as you want. That's always true for all the problems on the site. You can make as many attempts as you need. For the practice problems, you try them. If as soon as you get them wrong 8 times, we'll show you how to do them. Our goal is for you to learn, and so we give you a few times to try, and then at a certain point we say, okay, if you want, you can watch one of the instructors explain how to approach the problem. All right, so we've got some video content in this lesson, which is pretty cool. We've got some more. We have another practice problem. This one has 2. And then down here, we have the homework problem for this lesson. So at the bottom of every lesson is a homework problem. This is a chance for you to demonstrate that you have absorbed the information that was presented in this lesson. So when you get down to the bottom here, if there's a part of this you don't know how to do, it's time to go back to the rest of the lesson, maybe watch a few more walkthroughs, experiment with the playgrounds a little bit more, to try to figure out where that gap in your knowledge is. Because this problem is something that I should be able to do. In this case, it's asking me to declare some variables. I declare my variables here. I run it using this button. Once you have solved each one of these homework problems, we will show you how to do it again. We have a series of solution walkthroughs that are visible once you've solved the problem. And you can watch those and see some different takes. Like once we start writing slightly more complex pieces of code, it's possible that someone solves the problem a little bit differently than you do, which is totally cool. And this gives you a chance to learn from other people and to see other ways of solving the problem and some other explanations. All right, so this is what you do with each lesson. Go top to bottom, experiment with the code, read the text, watch the walkthroughs, watch any videos that might be embedded. Sometimes we're not talking about code. We might have a video that we want to show you just to give you a sense of sort of how a particular thing works, or work with some props or a diagram or something like that. So we have videos as well. Complete the practice problems. It's a good chance to make sure that kind of like, okay, things are starting to make sense. And then complete the homework problem at the bottom. Once you've completed that homework problem, you can move on. However, again, I would suggest pace yourself. Don't try to do all the lessons in 1 week. Do one lesson one day, go to sleep, let that knowledge sink in a little bit, come back the next day. One way to think about it is your brain is a little bit like a muscle. If you want to get stronger, if you want to, get better endurance, you can't just go out and work out all at once. You got to pace yourself. You got to do a little bit every day. The difference between your brain and your body is that the brain gets tired, but it'll just kind of keep limping along, where your body will just shut down. Right? Most of you know that I could never go, and if I don't run very much, I could never go out and do a 100-mile run. But your brain will just kind of keep going, even though it's not working anymore. It's not helping. So the brain will go out and just do that 100-mile run, but it only gets the benefits of the first mile. So do the lesson, take a break, let that knowledge sink in, come back the next day or a few days later or the next time you have time, and move forward.